So you find a sample on a tune you like and you want it in your sampler. How do we do that? It's actually quite simple. However, if you've not done it before, maybe not so much. So we're going to go have a quick run through how to get a sample from a track from your record box collection into your sampler, or at least a section of anyway. For this demo, I've picked a track from A-Skills because I quite like that. And it's at 103 BPM, and the sample I would like is quite a cool wee bass line. However, you'll notice the track is at 103 BPM. Generally, I play house, so I'm looking about 125, 126. That's what I would like to use that sample in. So first things first is we need to get noise from the mixer into your sampler to make this work. At this point, I will put a demo image of my cabling, which to be fair is a bit of a mess, but you'll see where it plugs into the mixer to get sound into your sampler. At this point, you'll see it's using the send and return. You only actually need the send from the mixer to make this work, and it goes into your input on your DJS1000. The other part using a Pioneer mixer is you need to ensure that the send and return, which uses the same channel selector as your effects, is on the right channel. On the DJS1000 Nexus 2, which I have in front of me, it's on these blue lights. You'll see which channel it's got. So currently it's on channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. This deck is currently on channel 3, and this is currently on channel 1. It's just the way I've got it wired. Anyway, so I've got my channel selector on channel 3. So when I press play here, that is now sending signal to my sampler. Now, you'll notice up at the top corner, once you've got it, it's going the right way. You've got a little level indicator showing the amount of noise that's coming through on the input channel. One thing I would recommend is whenever you're sampling, try and make sure you've got the volume as close to the white line as possible without hitting it. If you hit it, then you're sending clipped, distorted signal in. But if you can get it as close to, that should give you a decent level of sample. If it's quite low down, it will sample at a lower volume and you'll struggle to get volume out of it without turning everything up on that one sample, which is not really ideal. You can also adjust your level there. So, I mean, if it's too high, you can turn it down. As you can see here, the volume of it's gone down, or we can turn it up as well to be round about where you'd want it. You can play with it to find out what suits you best. So with that in mind, now I have signal coming from this deck through the mixer to my sampler. The next part is getting the track or the sample to be understood by the DJS in the same way that I want it to be understood from the track. With Rekordbox, all your tracks will be beat gridded, sampled, analysed, whatever you want to do with it. So at the moment it's at 103 BPM and I've got my beat grid on it, which is currently correct. I've also set the loop on it, which is the sample I would like. I find taking a loop section like this is easier to take a sample than it is just letting the track play because it gives you the same part you're after. Nothing before, nothing after. You can literally play about with that until you've got this right. So this is the part I would like to use. As you can see, it's currently on a loop. It's 8 beats or 2 bars, which is what we need to hear. But the most important part of this is also the tempo. Currently, it's at 103 BPM. My sampler is at 126. So to make this work, these two need to be the same, a bit like mixing a track. So we could slow this down by clicking on the tempo and slowing it down, or we can use the pitch fader and speed this one up. That's your basics on that one. The other way to do it is we could set this to master and set this to sync. Admittedly cheating to a point, but is it? Because we're not mixing. All we're doing is taking a section of this and we want it in a certain tempo that we want to play with. So I find this to be the most effective way of taking a section of this track and putting it into here at the correct tempo. The reason behind this is if we have the wrong tempo and we tell it to sample 8 beats, it won't be able to calculate the size and the grid to play about with the sample. Once it's in here, it will actually all come out a little bit messy. It will sound out of sync and out of time, which in effect it would be. Now I've got this running at 126. This is showing at 126. We've got signal coming into here. We should now be ready to sample it. So the next part is we need to pick where it's going to go. I generally use the top half for sampling, so I'm going to use pad number 9. So the first thing we need to do is press the sample button, which is up here. So we can press that one. So you'll notice pads flashed and now they're empty, and all of the boxes that are empty are also red. You'll also notice the record length is currently on 8 because I'm sampling 8 beats or 2 bars. If you want to sample longer, change it with this one here, 16, 32, or you can set it to manual, in which case you need to press the button to start it and to stop it. For this instance, I'm going to use 8 because that's exactly what I'm sampling here. You'll also notice, depending on what number you put it on, the little red lines underneath each pad number change, and there's got little lines in it, which is to do with your beat markers. So for example, every red line indicates 1 bar or 4 beats. So we're going to put this back down to 8, which gives us 1 line in the middle, because that is effectively what we have on here as well. And now we just need to press the button in time when the sample starts to record it in. You notice the sample pad flashes as it's recording, and once it's done, it stops flashing. It's now lit up, opposed to the other ones which are not. Also, the pad I've used now has red writing underneath it. The red indicates the sample is not currently saved. So white samples with the white writing, they're saved. Red writing, not saved. So we can actually turn sampling off now, which will allow us to play it back. So we can turn that off. You'll notice all the red lines disappear. And now if we stop that, because we don't want to use it anymore, we're going to use this pad here. So now we have that in there. Now, if we want to have a little look at it, we can just press it on the screen, have a little look at the playback, make sure it plays the way we want it to. To be honest, I think I could probably take a little bit off the start of that. So I'm going to zoom in and go have a look at the start. And we're going to just take the start of it into there. So you can see it starts on the... It just kind of tightens it up a bit there. So that now plays the way I think I want to use it. So in order to try that, what I've done, I've set up just a simple beat. I've used a kick, a clap, and a hi-hat, and we've got 2 bars here available. That's all we've got, and it's at 126. So the sample itself, generally they come in and it's set on time stretch off, which, to be fair, at 126, which is what we've recorded it into, would be fine. But if you recorded something slower or faster, you would want it to time stretch to what you're working to. I always set this to master tempo, because it means that depending on what I've got set at, it will always keep things in time for me. Because that is an 8-beat sample, I'm going to put it on part 1 of part 1, and it should play the whole sample across both bars, or 8 beats. Let's see how this sounds. Quite happy with that. So at this point now, I want to save that sample onto my USB stick so I can use it again and again and play around with it and do what I want to do. So if we press onto the sample and we click sampling and edit up here. Now, when we set the sample up, we did take the start of the sample off. So in this part, I'm going to do the exact same thing again using selection start. We're just going to wind it in just to the start of the sample there, and then we're going to press save changes. At this point, you can give it a name, any name you want. I'm just going to call this Funky Bee because it's easy to type. And save. That's now saved onto the USB stick. If I was to save my package file here, so I could load this up at any time, it will automatically load. What I would generally recommend is, if you're saving a lot of samples from this, it puts in a folder called saved on your USB stick. Take it into your computer, organize your samples however you want, but whatever you save, it will always be in one folder. I always try and sort of break mine down. So I have like a folder for a cappella vocals, I have a folder for melodies, I have a folder for instrument stabs, that kind of thing. So whatever I sample, I will generally take that into the computer. I will load that into a relevant folder. Why I do that is purely for my own ability to go and remember what I've got. But also, if I was to save this as a package file and then move the file, that will not load. So bear that in mind. What you will need to do is go back, locate the original sample and put it back in there. So I will always try and move my samples before I build any projects on the unit, because the samples will not load if you've moved them. Just one thing to bear in mind. You'll also notice now it's been saved. It's got the name on it and it's now white because it's now saved. So now we actually have that part using that sample. Let's try it again, but this time let's take a vocal. But instead of using maybe a 70s sample or a breakbeat sample, which is where this has come from, let's take I don't know, a vocal of some description. So I'll go through my acapellas. What we have? Let's try AJ Tracy. AJ Tracy goes with everything. So again, we need to make sure the tempo is correct. It's still at 126 because we got it on sync to go with this. And what I'm going to use is
it's the Hyperman set. AJ Tracy live and direct.
That part. So we see it's also 8 bars. So what we can do is take it back to the start of the sample, set up 8 beats.
It's the Hyperman set. AJ Tracy live and direct. Yo, it's the
Now we can sample that. So again, just the same as we did before, we'll set this playing. At this point, it is worth noting, if you get them both playing in time, you can try it out before you sample it. So we're quite happy with that. They're playing in time. It sounds the way I want it to, so we can sample that. So if we press sample, we're now ready to sample again. You notice all the other pads have gone blank, all these have gone red. We don't actually need them up because there's still signal going through this because it's going through the send and receive. Obviously, we're going to put it up so we can hear what's going on. And all we got to do is press play. Or sample, should I say. So it's done. Turn that part off. We'll stop this. We have our sample of the vocal. Again, we'll load it onto part 1 of bar 1. Quite happy with that, so we can turn sampling off. However, I'm not going to save that because I've already got it saved on my USB stick. But what we can do is we can also slice it up. Generally, when I slice things up, I put one shot across the gate, and it will allow you to. It'll cut the vocal up, but it just means that when you press it, it won't play the whole sample. It'll just play the section until you let go. So now you can. All from 2 8-beat samples that we've put together off of 2 individual audio tracks from here into here. Hopefully that helps.